we are going to welcome our keynote speaker. So once again, we've got a keynote speaker presentation before we're going to release everybody for lunch. We'll have some lunchtime presentations. But I would like to introduce our next speaker. Lystrup. Okay. Dr. Makenzie Lystrup is with us today. She is the Center Director for the Goddard Space Flight Center. And what that means is she guides the direction and management of one of NASA's major field installations. Goddard sites include the primary campus in Maryland, Wallops Space Flight Facility in Virginia, the Katherine Johnson Independent Verification and Validation Facility in West Virginia, the Goddard Institute for Space Studies in New York, the White Sands Complex in New Mexico, and the Columbia Scientific Balloon Facility in Texas. All of that is to say she's a very busy lady. We appreciate her being here, and I'm not going to cut into any more of her time. Her full bio is there in the program. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Lystrup.
Thank you, everyone. I'm not speaking for long, so I won't keep you from lunch. This definitely is too high for me. It was the peril of speaking after somebody really tall. I kind of changed all of my talking points based on the panel that we just saw. So it's going to be maybe slightly different than I originally intended, mostly the same, but I have some pretty direct responses to some of the things that were just said, which is always exciting. I prefer that. First of all, I want to talk a little bit about Goddard Space Flight Center. When the Maryland Senate President, Senator Ferguson, mentioned the Applied Physics Lab, APL, as being a really important economic driver here in Maryland. Absolutely true. He mentioned the spaceport, but I kind of cringed because he didn't mention Goddard Space Flight Center. We are 10,000 employees. We are the largest NASA center. We're certainly larger than APL, although I won't diss them because APL is a fantastic partner and they're a really important part of the Maryland economic community and science community. We are across 6 locations in different states, but our primary facility is in Greenbelt, Maryland. And then, of course, Wallops Flight Facility, which is on the Eastern Shore and is such a key piece of Delmarva in general. It's located in Virginia, but half of our employees live in Maryland, and so it's very important there. I want to thank Bill Chambers for the invitation to present here today, and thank the support for all that you do in this region. Being here with the elected officials, with the civic and business leaders, it's really an honor. I've been at Goddard for about a year and a half, but I came from industry. I was an executive at an aerospace company, so I definitely have spoken at a number of Colorado business forums just like this, both as a local business person and someone in the community who is very interested in economic development. And I think that this is just a really critical time for us to be talking about Goddard Space Flight Center and NASA and aerospace in Maryland and in Delmarva. I think you're looking at the opening slide here. So this is a great representation. This is actually looking down at Delmarva as seen from the International Space Station. And it's bracketed by the Cygnus cargo spacecraft on the left and the station's robotic arm built by Canada on the right. So on the right-hand side, you really see a story of partnership. Everything we do at NASA is a partnership, including international partnerships. And we are really, in the United States, the leader in space and space science and exploration. And folks really rely on us in the global community to lead, which means that we also get the greatest part of the economic development based on aerospace. And then on the other side is really the story of the kind of economic development right here in Delmarva that we bring from NASA. This is a Northrop Grumman spacecraft, right? This is the cargo spacecraft that was taking cargo up to the International Space Station. They're launching from the Wallops Flight Facility. This is a purely commercial endeavor. They're using the NASA Wallops Flight Facility for launch, but they're based purely commercial. We're buying it as a service from the commercial sector. And this is pretty new. NASA has been dedicated to developing the commercial sector for the last, I would say, sort of 20 years, but it's really been in the last 10 years or so that we've started to see some of that. So I have to go to the next slide, and I want to talk about the impact that NASA has on the Maryland ecosystem. And again, this spills out absolutely into Virginia and to Delaware as well. But this is where I really want to talk about some of the things that I heard in the last panel. If you're looking for something that Maryland does that no one else can do, and that is truly world-class, because there is something that is truly world-class, and that is aerospace. And I see people laughing. I'm not kidding here. There are 3 places in the entire world that can do end-to-end enormous multi-billion-dollar missions of critical national importance, important to both science and to national security. There are 3 places in the world that can do that, and 2 of them are in Maryland. One of them is JPL in California. The others are APL and Goddard. And that is literally world unique. We are talking about 33,000 jobs that are associated with this, more than $8 billion in economic development. This looks like a good news story. I don't think this is a good news story, because guess what? We're the largest NASA center in the country, and we are absolutely punching below our weight, in my opinion, when it comes to economic development. Our impact here, this is on par with Colorado, where I moved most recently from. There are no NASA centers in Colorado, and they have almost the exact same amount of economic impact in Colorado. Why? They have more of the manufacturers and the folks who are actually building things. 80% of the money that comes to Goddard Space Flight Center, 80% goes straight out the door, and most of it to the private sector. This is not just a government job type of operation. It's not services. It is developing key technology. It is sending out the most advanced technology into space. It's manufacturing jobs. It's really good technician jobs for people who did not go to college. It's advanced degree jobs, people who have PhDs in engineering and science, and everything in between. But again, we're punching below our weight. Why? Because we don't have most of the manufacturers. California, Virginia, when you look at Alabama and Texas and Florida, again, you've got big space centers there. Did you know, and raise your hand honestly, did you know that Maryland had the largest NASA center in the country? Exactly. Most people do not know that. Almost nobody knows it. When I hear, oh, we got to find something that we're really world-class in, I think, we do have that. Maryland, almost no one can parallel what Maryland does in aerospace. So, if you're looking for something to double down on, something to figure out how do we keep and attract more of our businesses associated with aerospace, okay, I would take a look at that. How do we keep more employees? How do we keep our graduates from Maryland? How do we keep them in the state working on aerospace? How do we do, those are the kind of questions that I would love somebody to answer. We just started this Maryland Aerospace Technology Commission out of the governor's office. This was legislation that was originally introduced by Senator Alonzo Washington. And I'm on that commission just as a sort of ex officio member, because I'm a government employee. But that was part of trying to raise the profile. And again, I'm not just talking about, for those of you who might think, well, it's federal government, it's just government jobs. These are not people sitting in offices, right? Yes, we have some of that. But the people sitting in the offices are doing really difficult legal work, contracting work. They're doing big data analytics. We're investing in quantum sensing, quantum communication, quantum networking. When it comes to AI and machine learning, we've been doing that. We're still doing that. We're doubling down. We're building the most complicated scientific technology ever built. And again, it's not just a nice to have. These are not the kinds of missions that are like, oh, we do some science missions and it's really good for students and good for the science community. This is the kind of science missions that have technology that is applicable broadly across the commercial areas, broadly across the government. It's important for national security. It's critical for our competitiveness competitiveness globally, and we will see, I think, that there is going to be a continued push on these kinds of missions because they're the kind of things that keep us really competitive in the globe, particularly against our economic rivals like China, yes, but also throughout the world. So if we let that go, then we absolutely are going to be behind. So we're in this position to be able to have this gem that is literally world-class and literally unique in the world. We don't need to look outside for something that doesn't exist. It's right here. So I just really want everybody to come out to Goddard, go to Wallops, get educated, because it's not just what we do. Like I said, 80% of the money that comes into Goddard goes out and mostly to the private sector. Go look at what Rocket Lab is doing. Rocket Lab is the second busiest launch company in the world after SpaceX. They have a base over at Wallops. It's privately owned. They're a commercial spaceflight company. We're supporting them. We're trying to help them grow. It's not just Rocket Lab. We have Northrop Grumman that has a facility there. We're trying to attract more people there. When it comes to Greenbelt, it would be great if we had more of our manufacturers that were right outside the gate, but where are they? They're in Rochester, New York. They're in Colorado. They're in California, right? We've got all of our services providers. I mean, 2/3 of our workforce is private contractors. And again, these are engineers and technologists. So why aren't we building more? Okay, so I have to hammer that home, because when I came, like I said, I was an aerospace executive before I came to Goddard. Why did I come to the federal government? It's a labor of love. It's because Goddard and what Maryland has is unique in the world, and we deserve to be leading the world in some amazing projects. And frankly, we could be doing more. We have the ability to do more. But again, I look out and I ask people all the time, do you know what Goddard does? Do you know what it means for the commercial sector? We've got companies out there that are doing commercial work in Earth observations, like Planet Lab. Why aren't they based in Maryland? So I want folks to take one message away, and that this here, if I were sitting where you were, right? If I were back in my corporate job in aerospace in Colorado, I wouldn't see this as a good news story. I would see this as a huge challenge. We should be doing better than this. We should not be 5th in the nation. We should be 1st in the nation. If we go to the next slide, this is just basically a cartoon saying, hey, the growing space economy, it is growing. So, there are estimates, and we can get you the references on this, that the space economy is expected to grow to $1.8 trillion by 2035. What's this being driven by? You see it in the news, right? It's being driven by in-orbit communications, whether that's internet or other satellite communications. It's being driven, yes, by government, which is not going to be a declining market. That is an increasing market. Overall, outside of NASA, the demand for presence in space is only increasing. And so this is, this is a growing area, and other states are capitalizing on that. You can take a look at what other states have done in terms of trying to grow their aerospace economy. Again, looking at places like Texas and Florida with their state commissions and what they've done to try to grow that economy and to try to really capture it. Now, the next slide, this is when I would normally go into kind of some of the big inspirational things that we're doing, because we are doing some really amazing things. How many of you have seen any of the images from the James Webb Space Telescope? Okay, everybody's hand should be up. You should go Google right now. I know you all have your phones and you're secretly multitasking. So go and Google Webb Space Telescope. This is the most, I believe, personal opinion, the most technologically advanced thing ever done in space. I believe more technologically advanced than sending people to the moon or even sending rovers to Mars. This is an incredible piece of technology that is important for so many reasons beyond just the science. It's the cryogenic electronics that were required to be able to do the optics. It's the high-performance electro-optics that are involved in the telescope. The next generation of telescopes looking at ultra-low noise electronics, low-light imaging, high-contrast imaging. If you go and talk to other people out in the sort of national security space, they'll understand why those things are important. These are critical technologies that are being done world-class, pushing the bounds of physics, being done right here in Maryland. If you go to the next slide, this is sort of showing this sand chart of where we expect things to move in terms of today's space economy versus the space economy by 2035, 2033 here. But this doesn't happen, and this isn't possible without everybody working together. Like I said, I mean, please do not see NASA and Goddard and Wallops as this island of a federal, a federal sort of facility out in the middle of nowhere. First of all, we're right in the community. And again, we are connected deeply to the private sector, to the commercial sector. I can tell you, I talk with people in the financial sector in New York City. They're using NASA data and data that was generated by Goddard Space Flight Center every day in risk modeling, in the reinsurance market, in catastrophic risk modeling, in looking at potential threats to markets. It's being used everywhere. This is not trivial data that, again, just goes into science. I'm a scientist, so I believe that the science is really important. But I'm talking to people who are looking at a really difficult economic time that we have right now, and a difficult, I think someone said, a difficult next 10 years. It is. You are in a really difficult position who have to make economic decisions. Our elected lawmakers, really, really difficult position. But like I said, there is so much opportunity. I'll end on this last slide, which really is the opportunity awaits. Again, I have a lot of great talking points here that my team and I put together. But we just listening, I was like, we have such a fantastic story to tell, but we're not telling it. And it's not really, we are punching so below our weight where we actually are, let alone looking at how we grow that. So I just encourage everybody, the aerospace economy is already huge in Maryland, and it's not even as large as it could be. So I want to thank everybody, and hopefully you are actually Googling those pictures. I want to give a shout out to our Wallops Flight Facility Director, Dave Pierce. Hopefully many of you know him already. He does a fantastic job with Wallops, and it's such a gem in the country. Also supporting critical work in hypersonics for the Department of Defense and ensuring that we are moving that technology forward. We're behind in the world, but we're catching up, and that's being done, again, right here in Delmarva. So, again, thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it. I've been on the other side of the podium here at these economic development forums. So, good luck, and let's all go out and be prosperous. Thank you.
So join me, one more round of applause. That was exciting, and I think it's important to recognize that the doctor likely came here with a full deck of slides and everything she wanted to say, and she catered that message based on what we're talking about today. And I really, really appreciate you driving home some of those points and referencing previous presentations. So I would like to ask John Hickman to give a quick announcement, and then we're going to go ahead and break for lunch.
Yeah, so I'll keep it very brief because I'm standing between you and lunch. As you heard, Andy Bauer, they look for your opinions every 12 months. We at Beacon ask you twice a year to tell us what's going on in your business and your industry. There's a sign-up sheet here. We will be sending out our business sentiment survey on January 1. So if you will take a second, scan this, just give us your email. We don't need anything more, and we'll let you know when it comes out January 1st. And lunch is served.